Hey folks, everything new under the sun. Got a live stream going here. This should be interesting. I haven't done a live stream in a little while. Breaking news, and there seems to be a lot of interesting news happening today. A lot of things are kind of winding up in the world. And this is part of it. The Doomsday Clock has moved ahead. And I'm going to talk about that briefly. It's not going to be a long stream. I'll wait for a couple of minutes and see if people join the stream here. But others can view it after the fact. Let's see. Let me just change settings there. Thank you very much, YouTube. Okay, so Doomsday Clock has been moved ahead to 90 seconds to midnight. And of course, NATO here, which you see, NATO is basically battling against Russia, which we've been talking about and which many other folks are talking about as well. And I'm hoping this is live because I don't see... Let's see, one or two people coming on, maybe here. But what was I going to say? Interesting news about the stock markets this morning. A little cyber attack there. I don't know. But the thing is, you got to start thinking that way as we continue down the road of NATO battling Russia directly. You got to expect there will be cyber attacks happening. And this is an interesting graphic on War News 247. And it shows, the French and the German tanks and the British tanks and the U.S. tanks and the Canadian tank back there and the Swedish tank and so on. Interesting, isn't it? A fabricated graphic, obviously, but doesn't that kind of tell the story? A picture is worth 1,000 words. And this article says the planet is on the precipice of a third world war. Practically, it has already started after the U.S., Germany, and Britain agreement to send hundreds of Leopard 2 tanks, M1A2 Abrams, and Challenger 2 to Ukraine. Now, there was some question about had anybody decided to actually send tanks. And sure enough, this is CNN.com, so your favorite mainstream media news network here. And let me just slide that over there. Germany to send Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. And Der Spiegel is reporting that. Germany is set to send its sought-after Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine to help bolster the country's war effort, Der Spiegel reported Tuesday. Attributing to unnamed sources, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has decided to deliver the battle tanks following months of debate. Now, there's this big meeting at Ramstein base there in Germany discussing this, and finally news is coming out from Der Spiegel about this and being reported again in your mainstream media news. So it's got to be it's got to be common knowledge if the mainstream is actually reporting on it, and they are here. Sending Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine would provide Kiev's force with a modern and powerful military vehicle ahead of a potential Russian offensive. So you've probably heard it from Canadian Prepper, other folks who are reporting that Russia is waiting for the ground to freeze before they can initiate an offensive. Several other folks are talking about that. Now we have again CNN reporting that there's going to be a spring offensive. While the ground's frozen still, send in the tanks. And the problem with these tanks is that Ukraine now is going to be putting modern tanks and modern air defense systems against Russia's modern tanks and modern air defense systems. This is no longer a battle of used old equipment. Russia was sending old equipment to Ukraine. Ukraine had a bunch of old Soviet-era equipment. They were fighting Russia with it. Slowly but surely, various new technologies, smart missiles, etc., have crept into the fight. And it's true. This is now a battle between NATO and Russia. Russia-NATO direct military confrontation. hundreds of Abrams Leopard 2 tanks with NATO crew enter Ukraine is the suggestion that is going to be happening, because when they send these M1A2 Abrams tanks, they need a crew, or they need to train the Ukrainian soldiers on this. Why do they say that? Well, it says, and this is because there is no time to train Ukrainians. There's the text there. The crews of the tanks, go away there, will be NATO, while the transfer of F-16 fighters and attack helicopters to Ukraine is expected to follow. So Canadian Prepper CP has been saying that there's mission creep, and there is. This has been a slowly growing war, I guess slow enough that the mainstream media doesn't really care, slow enough that the regular Joe public doesn't really care, and it's not affecting him. But as I mentioned by way of the cyber tax video, we will start feeling it. And that's exactly what NATO does not want. NATO does not want the countries of NATO, US, Britain. They don't want the regular folk to recognize that we're in a war, or to know it, or to feel the pain. Because if we do, we're going to start asking our politicians what's going on, and maybe to get out of that war. And they don't want to do that, because there's billions upon billions of dollars being made with the war machine, creating ammunition, creating new weapons, testing new weapons. This is really NATO's chance to test all the weapons they've been holding on to during the Cold War, to test them against the latest Russian technology. And they don't want to get into a full-out war. This is kind of like a training ground, effectively, for NATO, its troops, its intelligence, and its equipment. Russia pretty much knows it. Russia, too, is testing, obviously, but Russia is trying to really push back the borders of NATO. So you really got to look at this from both sides. So again, interesting situation there that Germany is looking to do that. Now, this is the latest article from the Atomic. Let's see, 90 seconds to midnight. World closer to doomsday. This is from the Doomsday Clock of the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. They need to shorten their label, but last year it was 100 seconds. So here is the article from last year. 100 seconds of midnight, man-made apocalypse closer than ever, dated January 23rd, 2022. So, released today, just today, the Doomsday Clock of the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists has been updated to be now 90 seconds, so 10 seconds change. This is the closest the clock has ever been to reaching the dreaded midnight. And interesting that they went to 90. I don't know the significance of this. I don't know why they wouldn't go to 60. Maybe every year they're going to go down 10 seconds. I don't know what goes into making this decision, but it says this marks the 10-second change compared to 2022 when it was 100. Here's the explanation, I guess, and it says, we are living in a time of unprecedented danger, and the Doomsday Clock time reflects that reality. Bulletin President and CEO Rachel Bronson said, adding that the 90 seconds to midnight is the closest the clock has ever been set to midnight, and it's a decision our experts do not take lightly. The U.S. government, its NATO allies, and Ukraine have a multitude of channels for dialogue. We urge the leaders to explore all of them to their fullest ability and to turn back the clock. I think this comment here is recognition that NATO allies and Ukraine have no interest in stopping the fight. They have no interest in stopping the war. They're making a lot of money. They're testing their equipment, as I said. There hasn't been any real recognition of any interest to stop this war. Very interesting. And, news coming that Russia's Putin will have an announcement over the next couple of days as to what may be occurring. And they want to get these tanks in here before that surge on Ukraine. And so if it comes to the point where there's toe-to-toe battles between NATO and Russia, and they can't fake it anymore, they can't suggest it's anything otherwise, Russia has admitted, their generals have admitted that Russia cannot win a conventional war against NATO. They know that. They recognize that. They've admitted that on TV. There's interviews there where you can listen to the audio. And what that means is the generals say, you know what, we can't beat them conventionally. And that will be the next point of significant escalation. When that's laid bare, on the battlefield, and there are tanks and there are everything else that NATO has to offer on the battlefield, that's when Russia will go nuclear. That's when they will use their hypersonic missiles. That's when they will possibly launch a preemptive strike, because they know they can't beat NATO with conventional weapons. NATO, there's too many countries, there's too much ammo, too much weapons, too many people, all battling Russia. Russia is the largest landmass, land size of any countries in the world. I believe that's true to this point. And you can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But they only have, I think it's 30 or 40 million people, so similar to the population of Canada. So them going up against the millions upon millions of people, just the U.S. alone is, 350 million people. So Russia going up against the U.S. in terms of foot soldiers or people that they can put on the battlefield is not something they can win. Again, the idea of the conventional war. And so this will go nuclear, but I think before that we'll start seeing cyber attacks, and really that's what the person that was on Canadian Prepper's channel, the expert, he basically said, what is the buildup? What is the lead up to a nuclear war? Well, you'll start seeing things like cyber attacks increase, because they're going to have to take out maybe the satellites first. And the easiest way to do that, not necessarily shooting them out of the sky, but with a software update or with a cyber attack. We saw I won't call it the cyber attack. We saw the issue with the New York Stock Exchange. Could Russia be kind of poking and prodding at the financial system in the United States to take them down? Remember, U.S. has destroyed Russia financially, or at least that's what they tried. Now, Russia is doing very well because they're selling oil for huge profit. They're selling it through and laundering it through China, which is known, and China's selling that oil and gas right back to Europe instead of going straight to Europe. And Russia also has payback for Nord Stream and for the Crimean Bridge and the bombings inside Russia proper. And so, this is going to be something that comes up before nuclear war started. But again, you got to recognize that we're in the middle of World War III right now. It's not a conventional war. It never was going to be. It's an asymmetric war. It is a proxy war currently. Will it go hot? Will it go, toe-to-toe, NATO versus Russia? In a more conventional sense, it may. Or they may just keep battling on the cyber front. And that really, they don't need to throw a nuclear weapon. They can just do an EMP blast, or simply insert a bug, a virus into our economic, our computer systems, our banking software, and take us out where we can't buy or sell. And doesn't that sound biblical as well? So, we don't have to go to bombs dropping out of the air. Cyber attacks are certainly enough, and EMP certainly, that would take out most of our electronics. That would really decapitate the U.S. and the West in general. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. I thought that was interesting. 90 seconds to midnight on the Doomsday Clock. So I hope you know the Lord Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, and that's kind of the way I end most of my videos. Things are getting crazy. Things are escalating very, very fast now, and the more they escalate, the more news there is out there to discuss and to line it up with Bible prophecy. And I think we are moving ahead. Remember, in the last second last video, 2 videos ago, anyways, I spoke about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and the fact that maybe we're creating our own economic collapse, and maybe we're creating our own World War III and the war that comes with the 4 horsemen in Revelation 6. It makes sense. We're taking ourselves there. It doesn't have to be a supernatural thing where God's sending 4 horsemen. Maybe it's just a description of what man is doing to himself. And folks, we are heading there very, very quickly. I'll leave it there, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next